In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. From what I'm seeing, our modern world is divided between two ways of thinking: rigorism or relativism. The relativists believe that it is important to give freedom to everyone, and more or less they believe in a world that everything goes, or anything goes. They want to be open-minded and accepting everything and everyone. On the other hand, we have the rigorists, who make it as their crusade to keep everything that it was, believing that they are going to keep the values of society, or what they believe to be of value in society. And they are clashing a lot, the rigorists and the relativists. What are we called to be as Christians? Are we called to be rigorists or relativists? I think from today's gospel, the Lord gives us a third option. In the dialogue that he had with the Samaritan woman showed a little bit of rigorism. There was a big debate between the Jews and the Samaritans about the place of worship. The Samaritans, or I don't want to go into the whole historical reason why the Samaritans and the Jews were hating each other so much. A long story short, the Jews were worshipping God in Jerusalem on Mount Zion. The Samaritans were worshipping more or less the same God. They were still believing in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They were still having the first 5 books of the Bible. But they were worshipping God on Mount Gerizim, and they built their own temple on Mount Gerizim, which, by the way, was destroyed by the Jews in 128 before Christ. So there's a huge religious fight between the Jews and the Samaritans. And the Samaritan woman seemed to be caught a little bit in this fight of rigorism. Jerusalem or Mount Gerizim? And she asked the Lord, what do you think? Where should we worship, in Jerusalem or on Mount Gerizim? And the Lord answered her, woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such worshippers. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and truth. What do you notice? What do you notice from the Lord's answer? Was he a rigorist or a relativist? Was he very stuck into just Jerusalem? Or was he also open-minded about other options? How was he? He was open-minded, right? What else do you notice? I would also argue that he was also well-grounded in his tradition, and he was a little bit of a rigorist. Why do I say this? Because he said, you worship what you do not know. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. How does that sound? And if he left it only at that, if he answered only, you worship what you do not know, we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. If that was his only answer, he would have been a rigorist. But can you see how beautifully he intertwines being open-minded and being firm at the same time? He is very well grounded. He knows who he is. He knows who he worships. He knows why it is important to worship in Jerusalem, and he is not afraid to tell the Samaritan woman that salvation comes from the Jews. That's how it was. Nevertheless, the time will come when true worshippers will worship God not in Jerusalem, not on Mount Gerizim, but in spirit and in truth all over the world. So my answer would be that if we want to be like Christ, as Christians, we are called to be rigorists and relativists. And I would say that we are called to be beyond these categories. As Christians, we are called to be enlightened. According to the tradition of the church, the name of this Samaritan woman was Fotini. Fotini means the enlightened one. By the grace of God, this woman became indeed enlightened. Do you know another name for holy baptism in the Orthodox Church? Yesterday we had a baptism, and one of the prayers says, "Bless your Christ, our God, who calls everyone to your holy enlightenment." As Christians, we are called to be enlightened. We are called to be full of light and not to get caught in these arguments. We are called to have a very strong foundation. We are called to be like a tree who has very strong roots, who has a strong trunk, and then it has branches. A tree that has only roots and a trunk, is it a beautiful tree? Is it? A tree that has only branches cannot exist. Okay? First of all, you have to have the roots, you have to have the trunk, and then to have the branches. From what I'm seeing, we are pushing our children into having branches, into being very open-minded about everything and everyone, without giving them the roots and the trunk. On the other hand, we see senior people who are having just roots and the trunk and no branches. If we want to be complete, and what I mean by this, by the roots and the trunk and the branches, what I mean it is that it is very important, let's say for us as Orthodox Christians, it is very important to know who we are. And this is established in the first half of life. And it is very important for a child to know who his parents or her parents are, what faith he or she belongs to and why, what ethnicity he or she belongs to and why. And those are the roots that forms who I am, who I think I am, my identity. And it is very important to have an identity. Those are the roots and the trunk. Unfortunately, many people, more and more people, stay in the first half of life, and they keep identifying themselves with who they are, and they seem afraid to be even in touch with somebody else who is different, who has a different root and a different trunk than mine. If we want to be like Christ, we are called also to grow branches, to bloom, to be open-minded. But we could be open-minded only if we know who we are. To go in the second half of life, to become wise, to be able to engage in dialogue, like the Lord who engaged in a dialogue with someone with whom he was not supposed to engage in a dialogue, with the Samaritan and the woman. But he did, because he was enlightened. And he was not afraid because he knew who he was, and he was not afraid to tell the woman who he was. He didn't lose himself by engaging in the dialogue. This is who we are called to become. This is the kind of people that the world needs. This is who the Christians are called to be. Like Christ. Enlightened, not rigorists, not relativists, but enlightened. Amen. Glory to the Father, and to the Son,